If you're brand new to stocking a pantry, or if you've been at it for a little while but want to look at some other options, today we're going to talk about storage and the different things that you can store your long-term, short-term, and immediate use food in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to SuttonsDaze. If you're new here, my name is Lisa. We are all about pantry preparedness and different ways to become better prepared to deal with life's little emergencies, because your pantry is the best insurance that money can buy. Today, we're going to go over various amount of storage possibilities that you can look at, and we're going to discuss different things that you can do to make sure that you are prepared. My hope is that with this guide, you'll confidently choose the right method for each type of food in your long-term or short-term pantry storage. Sometimes you have to spend a little money. Sometimes it's stuff that you've just got sitting around. In this case, we're going to start with glass jars like mason jars or similar, right? These are best for home canned foods, obviously, fruits, vegetables, soups, meats, your dry pantry items for short-term to mid-term use, like your spices and your grains. Now, vacuum seal if you're going to do spices and herbs and even grains, even rice. Whatever I put in here, I typically vacuum seal it because I want to make sure it stays as fresh as possible. Is it absolutely necessary? No, but it is a good practice, especially when you're looking at herbs and spices. Dehydrated or freeze-dried foods also, when you open up the original container, really go good when they're put into these smaller jars, and then vacuum seal them so that they stay fresh. It's an airtight, secure thing that, you don't have to worry about any pests or anything getting in there. So why use these? Simple. They're reusable and they're non-reactive. They're airtight when they're properly sealed. Transparent, one of my favorite things, right? They're transparent, so it's really easy to identify the containers as long as it's not pectin or arrowroot powder. And they're ideal for rotating stock in your working pantry. These are my go-to for my working pantry storage. Now, I do have some longer term items in there like salt because it was convenient at the time that I bought the salt. But otherwise, these are all things that I'm planning on using pretty much in the next 365. When you don't want to use these, when you're looking at long-term storage in hot or unstable environments, because if you have severe temperature fluctuations, it will impact the seal. Whether it's canning or whether it is vacuum sealed, you don't want that. And if the item that you're storing inside of it, if it expands or off gases anything, then obviously that's not good. These are also something that require your food to be in a dark area because the light gets to it. The more light that gets to your food, the more it deteriorates the nutritional value and the quality. Another option is Mylar bags. Mylar bags are a wonderful addition to the pantry. They can be intimidating if you're not familiar with them, but really they're not as hard as you may think that they are to deal with. They're actually pretty easy. Mylar bags are best for long-term, meaning, if you're buying enough wheat berries to put away for a few years, okay? So your long-term storage is really good for Mylar bags. Mylar bags come in a variety of sizes and shapes. Yes, they do. And these are the ones that I typically use. I use both 4 jars and I use Wallaby. Now the reason for this is because they send me the oxygen absorbers with them. That's a huge benefit. So with Mylar, you want to be able to store things, your dry goods, okay? So your wheat or your pasta or your oats, your grains, your beans, those are perfect for Mylar. And you will put those in whatever size works best for you in your situation. You will add an oxygen absorber because that extends the life and keeps it fresher. And because if there's any hitchhikers, it's not good. Why use Mylar bags? The real simple first one is because they keep the light out. You cannot see through these at all. So they keep all of the light out, which keeps the food lasting longer and a much better quality. Number 2, they are very secure. They really are wonderful. They are resistant to both moisture and pests. Yay! Now, I've heard people say, a mouse has chewed through Mylar. Well, I have a thing for that, so we'll get to that. But for the most part, they are very resistant to pests and definitely to moisture if sealed. The nice part is you don't have to have great big quantities. You can seal them in smaller bags and then take those smaller bags and put them into buckets. That's where they become more mouse resistant, okay? Because this seals them up really good and they become more secure when you put them into the bucket. They are also great because they create compact storage and they're great for organizing meals. Like Wallaby has these, and so does 4Jars, these small 1 pint bags. These are fantastic. If you're a camper, a backpacker, a hiker, you can create little meals right in these small bags and take them with you. And yes, as long as you don't get them wet and nasty, you can reuse them. Now, when I say that you can reuse them, meaning that you have not heat sealed them, because these have, both of these examples have like the Ziploc kind of, seal on them. If you do heat seal them, then what you want to do is do it above that Ziploc so that when you open it, you have the ability to reseal it again with the zip thing. You want to avoid anything that is moist or has any kind of moisture. So keep out anything liquid, obviously, but I would not even put in my dried fruit, AKA raisins, dried apricots, that kind of thing. That is different than dehydrated or freeze-dried. I'm talking about, the fruit that has 17% moisture for the most part. It's not a good thing to put into Mylar and definitely not oxygen absorbers. And if it's something that you access frequently, like a lot, then there's really no need to put it into Mylar. This is more for long-term storage, not something that you're going to visit every week, every day, every month even. It's something for longer than that. So Mylar is for longer term storage. And it is really one of my more favorite ways to store things just because it is so flexible to use. Vacuum sealing. Okay, a lot of us have vacuum sealers. The standard brand out there is Food Saver. 4Jars also has a vacuum sealer that I love because it is like the only thing other than a chamber vac that seals Mylar. That's a good thing to know. But Food Saver bags are a whole different way of saving your food. These are best for meats and vegetables for the freezer storage, okay? So you pick up a bulk thing of pork chops, right? You can divide them into the amount that you use per meal and vacuum seal them. No freezer burn. It's a beautiful thing. And they're ready to store in a much nicer, cleaner format in your freezer. Then when you want them, all you have to do is pull out that one package, not that 40-pound package. You know what I mean? And you don't have to worry about freezer burn as long as the vacuum seal stays. Most of the time, the vacuum seal will stay. Every now and then you get one that says, not going to do it. Stuff happens. But it's good for a very long time in the freezer as long as it's vacuum sealed. That goes for vegetables too. There are a lot of people that will go to the extent of saving their tomatoes until they have enough for a canner load in the freezer. And I've known people who vacuum seal them because that way they don't get all freezer burned if you don't get around to them. Now you have to remember vacuum sealing sucks the air out, which does put a compression on it. So if it's a very tender fruit like blueberries, I wouldn't do blueberries, at least not when they're fresh. I would flash freeze them first and then put them in there and do that. That's a way to do it. So there's always a way around. Why use them? It's really simple with the vacuum seal bags, okay? They remove most air to extend the freshness. Not all of it, but most of it. And that's really all we can ask, okay? Number two, it saves space because if you go through and vacuum seal everything and lay it nice and flat, you're gonna save a ton of space in your freezer to be able to stock up more. Yeah, that's always a good thing. And then it protects dehydrated and freeze-dried food. Because if you open it and you don't get to it right away, you can put it in a bag and vacuum seal it. Now, if you're going on a camping trip or if you're going floating down the river, trust me, you want to vacuum seal that, okay? Because that way it doesn't get ruined when your husband tips the canoe on you. I don't know what you're talking about. Remember also that it works really well for portioning serving sizes. So just like the pork chops or, whatever else you're thinking of, you can create portion sizes in that, which will reduce food waste because things have been forgotten or air has gotten to them or it was just too big a package and you didn't really mean to do all of them. You know what I mean? Portion sizing is fantastic. Things to avoid for this are high moisture items that sit at room temperature. That's not good. If you're going to freeze them, that's another thing altogether, but definitely not if you're planning on putting it on the shelf. I have successfully vacuum sealed, in vacuum seal bags, milk chocolate for, I think, 4 years. And then I moved it over to Mylar just because. So it does work for some things. I have even successfully vacuum sealed cumin in a food saver bag, and it lasted me beautifully for a couple of years. So, you know, you have to play with it and practice a little bit, and you have to make sure that it stays vacuum sealed, because otherwise it doesn't work. The difference between the food saver bags and the Mylar is that the food saver bags allow the light in. They are not as secure as Mylar bags, so they can be punctured easier. And because they aren't meant for long-term storage, but they are meant to be able to keep it around longer than you would if it was just hanging out. Yes, you can use oxygen absorbers in food saver bags. You absolutely can. Number 10, cans. Okay, you know those big old restaurant-sized cans that you get, right? These are my Thrive Life cranberries because I love them. These are fantastic. And if you get any of these in and you're not going to eat them right away, you're looking more at long-term storage, take them from whatever container they were shipped to you in and put them on a shelf and leave them alone. They will last you a very long time. Depending on the product inside, 25 to 30 years. Yeah, remember those are prepackaged. So your prepackaged long-term storage, freeze-dried food, emergency food kits, you know, which I don't recommend. But anyway, that's what those are best for. Why use those? Professionally sealed and shelf stable. That's the key right there, okay? Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they are nitrogen flushed or sealed with oxygen absorbers. So that helps retain the freshness inside. It really depends on the company. And they're durable and rodent resistant. Yeah, they're a metal can, you know, just like coffee used to come in back in the day, okay? What you want to avoid is a DIY metal can storage system at home, because we can't duplicate what they do commercially unless you have all of that equipment. That's a whole nother game, okay? But for the average Joe out there, not something you can duplicate, so just don't do it. Also, if it's something that you're going to frequently be getting into, then you want to take it out and you want to put it into something else, one of the other options that we showed, because it just won't stay as fresh as long, and it just makes sense to put it into something where it will last longer. Freezer storage bags. Now, pay attention to the ones that you get. Make sure that they're not just regular, but that they're freezer, okay? I tend to stick and just buy the freezer ones. They do tend to be a little bit more than the regular ones, but they are sturdier also. So they're stronger, and I just like them better. I do flip back and forth between the Ziploc and the non-Ziploc. It depends. But they're great and best for meats, bread, frozen fruits and vegetables, and prepared meals. These are fantastic, okay? So you don't have to vacuum seal everything. If you know you're going to be using it in the next month, put it into save your vacuum seal efforts for another thing. You also want to make sure, they're best because they're vacuum sealed or tightly wrapped items. Yeah, no. Why use them? Because they're inexpensive for the most part, right? They're great for preserving freshness and nutrients. Really, it's that simple. And they're convenient. I don't know a mom purse out there that doesn't have at least one that either contains or used to contain some kind of food for whoever was with them. I have used these for everything. I put pens in them so the pens don't leak in my purse. You know, yeah, they're great. And they definitely extend the life of perishables, okay? So if you have saltine crackers and, you know, you have a few left over out of the sleeve, once you opened it, throw them into a Ziploc bag. Seal it up. They'll stay fresh. What you want to avoid when you're using these is anything that's long-term food security. These are really great when you are looking at convenience and, you know, sooner than later use. But for long-term food storage in the freezer, you know, they can get freezer burned pretty easy. So I would do food saver bags instead, or vacuum seal bags instead of these. But if you know that you're going to be using these within the next 30-ish days, you know, then those work really well. There is a trick where you can take the item and put it in the bag and you put it down into water and the water pushes out the air and then you zip. Yeah, okay. You know, there are ways, but it's not as airtight as, say, a vacuum seal bag is. So it's something to consider. And thin bags not rated for freezing will get freezer burn. So it is worth it to get the freezer bags. Food grade plastic buckets. They are my life. I love them. Not only do I have an extraordinary amount wandering around the barn for various things for animal needs, I use them for soaking bare root plants. I use them for all kinds of things, okay? But in the pantry, that's where I use them for short term and for long term. And I'm going to explain to you why, okay? So first, what they're best for, bulk dry goods. I do a lot of bulk shopping. Buckets are practically a must-have, in my opinion, if you do bulk shopping, because you can store so much in there. Ideal as outer protection for Mylar bags. So anything you put in Mylar, I wouldn't put it on the shelf like that. I would put it into a bucket. It's that extra layer of protection that makes it just that much safer from anything that might try to access it. The other thing is emergency water storage. Literally, I have 4 of these in the breezeway filled with water. Their sole purpose is to be used when the power goes out so that we can flush. Yes, buckets are fantastic. Now we're going to talk about the lids for a hot minute, because that is a topic that will drive you to distraction. Must you have gamma lids? No, you must not. I have gamma lids on a few of my buckets, but it's mainly the ones that have like the flour or the sugar that I access on a regular basis, because you just unscrew the top and then you put it back, right? Because once that ring is on there, I have never found a way to get it off short of a Sawzall, quite honestly. So once that's on there, you're committed, you know, and trust me, after the effort that you're going to go through to get it on there, that's a commitment for sure. Those things will last longer than half the marriages today, okay? But they are convenient and they are handy if it's something that you access regularly with quantity. So because I do baking for other people, I have flour and sugar in these, and I just unscrew it, scoop out what I need, screw it back on. It's airtight, it does good, and everything stays safe and dry. And it's also dark because the light's not getting through the plastic. Why do you need buckets? Number one, they're relatively inexpensive. You can store a lot of food for anywhere between $4 and $8, depending on where you get them. Everybody seems to be jumping on the bucket bandwagon. I've seen them available at Costco and now Sam's Club. I typically get mine through Azure Standard. You can also get them from Walmart seasonally. And everyone always says, oh, go to the bakery. They always give them to you for free or sell them to you for $1. I have never had that kind of luck because they've never had them when I go there. So if you do, great. Would I bank on it? No, I wouldn't. It costs me more in gas to go find out than it does just to buy a bucket. Instead of a gamma lid, you can get the regular lids. Rarely do the buckets come with the lids. So I think the ones at Sam's and Costco do come with lids. Don't quote me on that, but I think they do. But normally you need to buy them separately. So again, it's an additional cost, you know, but I get my buckets typically from Azure Standard. You can get them from all the places I said, plus Home Depot and Lowe's. I get my lids from Tractor Supply or Farm and Fleet or Azure Standard. Yes, just that simple. And then you just have to put them on, smack them down with a mallet, and they're good to go. How do you get them off? Well, this is why gamma lids are so handy and convenient in one aspect, is because you're going to need this. Yep. I'll have a link down below that will help you get the lid off of your bucket. It's necessary. It really is, without taking a Sawzall to it. So this is very helpful for getting the regular lids off. I have a few of them just in case, because things tend to grow legs. I want to make sure that I can access my buckets. That's kind of the setup that you just need to run with. Buckets are a fantastic thing. When you're dealing with buckets, you do want to avoid direct contact with the food in the bucket. It's just not a preferred method. Yeah, they are food grade, but that's a lot of food, okay? So unless, you know, I store my wheat in there most of the time without adding it into Mylar. But other than that, most everything gets put into Mylar because I portion it out. So I don't put 50 pounds of beans inside of Mylar bags that are smaller into a bucket, because I won't need that many beans at any one time. That way, when I do open the bucket, I can just grab a bag, close it back up again, and I've got my bag of beans. It works out really good. And definitely not for storing liquid unless we're talking about water to flush, you know? A couple of things that I don't have to show you, for examples, are cloth bags. Cloth bags can be very handy for a multitude of things, however, not for long-term storage. So they are best for storing onions and garlic and potatoes, right? Because they breathe, and you need to keep them in cool, dry places. Super important. Do not forget about your taters in there, because has anybody else had taters that you forgot about? That's like a dead body. I mean, it stinks horribly and it leaks and it's just not good. So you want to make sure that it's something that you're visually remembering on a constant basis. Short-term dry storage with airflow. That's what they are. That is what they're best for. And a lot of people also store their homemade bread in muslin bags or cotton bags, right? It beats the plastic bags that we get commercial bread in, and it helps a little bit to keep them from getting stale quite as quickly. I haven't had huge success with it. It's probably something I'm doing. So I just stuff it into a Ziploc bag. Why? Because Ziploc bags are handy. But as far as cloth bags, either cotton or muslin, they are breathable. That's the bonus to them. They're breathable. They prevent mold. Okay. Eco-friendly and reusable, which is huge for a lot of people. Okay. I hate the one and done. It's kind of like when I plant flowers. I'm not planting an annual. I'm planting a perennial. I want to do it once and I don't want to do it again, you know? And then it's ideal if you have root cellar storage or a basement, okay? Someplace cool, dark, and dry, then those bags are fantastic for those short-term storage items. A lot of time in the comments section, I will still see people that leave comments saying that they store their beans or their rice in cleaned out, well-dried soda bottles, okay? Like the 2-liter bottles. And they'll put them in there and they'll throw in an oxygen absorber and crank that lid on and it holds them good. It's a way to do it. It doesn't keep the air out, but it's definitely recycling something that otherwise you wouldn't. Those bottles are also fantastic for water, for emergency water. So they're a great way to put in extra water for, flushing or for drinking. You want to make sure that they are super clean before you add the potable water to them. But it's a great way to do it and to keep rotating them through. That is going to be the key. You cannot just stack water in and walk away and hope that in 10 years it's there for you. It doesn't work that way. Why should you use plastic bottles? Okay, seriously, because they're readily available and they're very low cost. If you're consuming it anyway, then you might as well make use of them, right? And because a lot of times they're pretty tight sealing. You can get a good seal on those things. So putting in an oxygen absorber and putting that tight seal back on there will just make it even tighter, makes it more secure. It's good. Things that you want to avoid are oily foods. Don't store oily foods in plastic bottles, and don't reuse plastic bottles that had oil in them. You'll never get it all out. It just doesn't work that way. And then long-term storage, okay? Unless they're BPA free and you're sure that they're BPA free, which now they should be, and that they're properly sealed. Those are the things that you really want to watch for when you're looking at using plastic bottles or reusing plastic bottles. Metal tins with lids, yes. You see them all the time. They're a staple, I think, at a lot of thrift stores. You can find them at garage sales. Ooh, those popcorn tins are the bomb, right? Because those are like the gateway to 5-gallon buckets. They really are. You don't want to put your food directly into them. You definitely want to put Mylar in it before you put your food in there, but they are fantastic. Number one, they are rodent proof. Nothing chews through metal, okay? And for the most part, have a really good seal on them, which makes them pest proof also. They are great for specialty items, okay? Like tea or candy, even your coffee or baking soda. Yeah, it's a great thing to put in there. Again, with it being lined, definitely bug proof, okay? Why do you want to use them? Well, like I said, they're super easy to obtain. They're durable. They are light blocking. That's a huge one, right? And they make things really convenient and a little more decorative if you find some really cool ones. They have some really cool ones out there. What you want to avoid using them for is moist or oxygen sensitive foods without an additional barrier. Okay, so number one, moist? No, just say no. Nothing moist, okay? But any other foods you can definitely store in there. Like I said, those popcorn tins, they're the gateway to 5-gallon buckets and very affordable. And they come with the lid. You can take your Mylar and put your food into the Mylar, seal it up, and put them into those popcorn tins. That is definitely a great way to do it. Make sure to label it because otherwise you will drive yourself crazy. I hope that this list was helpful in trying to decide which way you should go when it comes to food storage, long-term food storage. I'm going to put a list of links down below in the description box. If you are on your television, you'll need to pull out your phone or your tablet to check them out. But I will also put a link to a handheld vacuum sealer and the attachments that you need for jars. They have the ones that are the whole thing over the top. Mixed reviews on them. Some people love them. I loved it for a little while and quickly became less of a fan, okay? I used mine until it stopped working. But my Food Saver handheld one has been with me literally for years. And I beat that thing up horribly. It's rechargeable. I use it all the time. No matter what, you have to have the attachments for the jars. So it just makes it easier to get it all done. I kind of treat it just like I treat my car. I don't expect a lot out of it. I just want it to do what it's supposed to. I want it to go and I want it to stop. And that's what I want from any tool that I use. I want it to do what it's supposed to. And so if I'm in the middle of a great big project and the vacuum sealer decides to, take a vacation, then it's of no use to me. So that's kind of what I ran into. But the one that I use, I'll link down below. Also, most of your countertop vacuum sealers have a place where you can attach the hose and the jar attachments in order to make it work. So you don't have to have 14 different tools. You can just use that one. It works just as well. If you like the chamber vacuum, if that's something that's in your budget, I love that thing so much. I pet it. I'm ready to name it. I'm telling you. That does have the tube also for vacuum sealing and works extremely well. So all of those links will be down below. I hope that this answered most of your questions, if not all of them, about what kind of container to use for what kind of storage and for how long. They are all viable, good options, and as time rolls on, depending on your circumstances, you will find yourself using all of them. I use all of these. It's just part of the rotation, and how I determine what to use is based on how long I plan to have it in my pantry. If you want to see more information on food storage, check out this playlist right here. And until next time, everybody, be safe. Stack it to the rafters, my friends.